In the year 2003, Capcom released a new entry in the ever-expanding Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil Outbreak for the PlayStation 2. Resident Evil Outbreak was developed with an emphasis on cooperative online multiplayer, something that was still in its infancy on the PlayStation 2. Instead of one long overarching story, Outbreak has 5 relatively short scenarios that almost feel like a short Resident Evil game each in and of themselves. Quite a few people have tried their hands at beating each of these scenarios as fast as humanly possible. This video will be going over the speedrun world record history of the first of these scenarios, Outbreak. The Speedrun.com leaderboard of Resident Evil Outbreak is broken up into several categories. There's full game, which we may cover in a future video, and there's a category for each scenario in the game: Outbreak, Below Freezing Point, The Hive, Hellfire, and Decisions. There are also 4 different difficulty options available, each with their own category: Easy, Normal, Hard, and Very Hard. The difficulties alter the placement of some of the items and the solutions to some of the puzzles, as well as making enemies stronger and take more hits, so the optimal strategies will vary depending on the selected difficulty. And lastly, the runs are separated based on if they were played offline by yourself with AI partners, or online with a team of human players taking control of the survivors. This video will only be covering offline runs, although we may tackle online records in the future. The player has a selection of 8 different survivors with varying stats and abilities to play as. Most runs will use Kevin, the fastest of the bunch, who also starts with a strong personal firearm. There's also Mark, a very tanky character with a lot of health and a personal handgun. Jim, who happens to be relatively quick, although he has a small HP pool. Jim can also rapidly swing melee weapons, as well as having a dodging move that lets him dive to the ground. George, a doctor, has the ability to turn herbs into pills with his medical case. David, who has a tool belt that lets him fix broken weapons, combine certain items into more potent weapons, and also has a personal knife and the ability to combo knife swings. Alyssa, a reporter who has a personal set of lockpicks that she isn't afraid to use, and also sporting a backwards dodge move. Yoko, a student who has a backpack, giving her the ability to hold 8 items instead of only 4, and she also has her own dodge move that has the most invincibility frames in the game. And finally, there's Cindy, a waitress who has an herb case, able to hold many healing items at once, and also another dodge move. The objectives required to complete the Outbreak scenario are as follows. Unlock the staff room door and proceed upstairs. Then, unlock the door leading upwards to the liquor room with the blue tag key. Find the forklift key, and then use it in the liquor room to allow passage to the rooftop staircase. Go outside on the rooftop, break this loose grate, climb up and jump across to the apartment building's roof next door. Proceed inside and take the elevator to the ground floor. Then go outside and meet up with Raymond, a police officer. He tells you to push the 2 police cars to use them as barricades against the monsters. After doing so, you retreat to an alleyway to find that the door on the opposite side has been chained shut. Raymond begins shooting at the door in order to open it, taking more shots on higher difficulties. At this point, you can either help Raymond damage the door with any weapons of your own, or try to keep the monsters off his back while he works. When the door is opened, Raymond meets his untimely end, but not before telling you to use his lighter and the fuel from a nearby fuel truck to burn all the monsters alive. After narrowly avoiding both a cascade of flames and the explosion of the fuel truck, you venture into a sewer tunnel, going up a ladder to the streets above. After emerging from the manhole, you can find another police officer nearby named Dorian. He calls for an evacuation, but after a little while with no one showing up, he offers to take you and a couple other survivors as far as he can in his police van. Dorian takes you for a ride, but keeps running into roadblocks and tells you that you'll have to hoof it from here. Afterwards, you go to the footbridge towards Main Street, and after receiving a small cutscene showing several cops having trouble with the undead whilst trying to set up a bomb to deal with them, you can either choose to go forward to finish the detonator and blow up the zombies, or run back to Dorian and take another ride in his van. Unfortunately, the less cool van ending just so happens to be faster to get. We're going to go through all the runs I've compiled in chronological order, so we'll be jumping from difficulty to difficulty. I'll keep a graphic with the current world record times and holders somewhere on the screen as we go through. But with all that covered, let's get into the runs. The oldest run that I could find dates back to August 14th, 2008. A runner named Jerry Kuto, playing as Kevin on normal, would end up with a 659. They'd take the earliest known route for normal, grabbing the staff room key from behind the desk, getting the blue tag key from under the newspaper, and going upstairs to get the forklift key in the wine room. Afterwards, going out to the rooftop and shooting the grate down with their .45 auto personal weapon. Then they rushed down through the apartment to the streets below. They pushed the nearby car first, and then went to push the other car right away, jumping over the hood of this car. After forming the barricade, Raymond took him into the back alley and began to shoot the door open. Jerry Kuto ran around to keep the zombies off of Raymond while he shot the door. After making their way through the alley and blowing up the fuel truck with Raymond's lighter, Jerry Kuto ran through the rest of the level at top speed, going to the cutscene on the footbridge and then back to Dorian to take the van ending, earning themselves a 6-minute and 59-second normal world record, and the earliest known Outbreak scenario speedrun. The next run on Outbreak was a 13-minute and 56-second very hard run, done by a runner named Shin on December 16, 2014. Shin elected to play as David in this run, and overall, this is pretty much just a fast, casual playthrough. They began the run by gathering a couple weapons and breaking down the door leading to the staff room, instead of waiting for the key to drop after a minute and 10 seconds. Afterwards, they ran right to get the blue key to make their way to the liquor room upstairs, grabbing a bottle for the forklift key puzzle. They went back up and used the forklift key, heading up to the rooftop after. Then they waited and let their partner Mark shoot some of the birds around for safety, and after, went and broke down the grate. Shin missed the jump across the roof, losing about 10 potential seconds, but thankfully not dying since the birds were killed beforehand. They then made their way down to the streets below, and pushed one of the two cars into the barricading position, keeping two of the Scissortails at bay. Shin then spent some time dispatching the other two that made it through, waiting for the section to end via a hidden timer. In the next room, Shin ran around, distracting the Scissortails while letting Raymond have a clear shot at the door. They also took the opportunity to ask Mark for a lighter that they picked up earlier in the run to use in the next room. After Raymond's grisly death, Shin burned all the Scissortails and jumped down to safety. They took some time to heal their partner Kevin, and then headed on to meet up with Dorian. Shin then ran up to the cutscene on the footbridge, and came back to take the van ending, ultimately earning themselves a 13:56 and also a no damage clear for the first very hard world record. Next, we have a run on the easy difficulty by a runner called Poopfist. Poopfist would go on to get early records in the easy and very hard categories, all categories at the time except normal. But you might be asking yourself,
hang on, Azumi, didn't you say there was a hard difficulty too? Where's the category for that?
That's a very fair question, and after asking some of the runners who were on the boards at the time, The consensus was more or less that hard wasn't very popular, and it was basically considered to be a watered down very hard. So with no one showing interest in running it, and plenty of other difficulties to choose from, the category wouldn't end up being created until sometime in 2019. But back to Poopfist's first record, which was a 6 minute and 46 second run on Easy. It took place a few months after Shin's run, on February 24th, 2015. They started by grabbing the staff room key from behind the counter, and then heading upstairs to get the blue tag key from under the newspaper. This is the easy difficulty, so key items are in much more favorable positions than on very hard. Afterwards, Poopfist headed upstairs into the liquor room, taking a quick detour into the wine room for the forklift key. They then went on to power the forklift and headed on up to the roof. Poopfist takes a bit more of a cavalier approach to the rooftop, opting not to deal with the birds like Shin did. Instead, they ran right over to the grate and tackled it, taking it down in a few hits. Afterwards, Poopfist nailed the jump and went down to the streets below. They pushed the nearby car first to avoid zombies blocking it, and then they jumped over the hood of this car and ran to the trunk here to grab a shotgun for later. Afterwards, they pushed the second car in place to end the street section early. Then, Poopfist helped Raymond break open the door with their own shotgun and the bullets from their personal .45 auto handgun. Afterwards, they grabbed Raymond's lighter and set all the enemies ablaze. They made their way up, spoke with Dorian, hit the bridge cutscene, and then finished off pretty strongly with a 646. Then, 6 days later, on March 2nd, 2015, Poopfist submitted a very hard time for Outbreak, one that would challenge Shin's existing record. Poopfist selected Kevin, who apart from being the character they played as in their easy run, also has a slightly faster base movement speed than Shin's character, David, does. Poopfist went into the men's bathroom first to pick up a handgun and then ran over to Will, the injured bartender, by the door. They waited for the zombies to bust in so the key to the staff room would appear. After grabbing the key, they ran into the owner's room for the blue tag key and ran up to the wine room to grab a bottle for the drawer puzzle. With the forklift key in hand, Poopfist rushed back to the forklift and up to the roof where they shot the grate 4 times with Kevin's .45 auto handgun. They hit the jump, saving an additional 10 seconds or so over Shin's rooftop. Then, on the street, Poopfist pushed the nearby car until the Scissortails blocked it, then ran up to the further car, pushing it all the way in place. Then they returned to the first car and finished putting it in place, altogether doing this room just over a minute faster than Shin did, waiting the timer out. The alleyway was next. Poopfist helped Raymond with crowd control, but also got about 20 handgun shots on the door, saving Raymond 4 shotgun shells in order to open it. They got through the explosion room relatively quickly and went through the tunnel and up to Dorian. Then, triggering the bridge cutscene and ending the run with a 10 minute and 52 second new world record on Very Hard. Just over a month later, on April 10th, 2015, another runner decided to take on the challenge of Outbreak Very Hard, someone named Shiroi. This runner had a very big emphasis on optimizing movement and strategies, saving time in any way they could. Shiroi decided to play as Alyssa, a survivor that possessed a lockpick, negating the need for the first 2 keys in the scenario. Sadly though, Alyssa still needed to grab the forklift key in order to progress. So Shiroi lockpicked their way up to the liquor room with lightning speed, grabbing the first bottle they saw for the puzzle downstairs. On their way back down, they grabbed the nail gun from a desk in the staff room, a unique weapon with 20 rounds that can either be used optionally to barricade some wood in front of this doorway, or just used regularly as a weapon. The nail gun did just as much damage to doors as the handgun did, so it was technically superior since it had 5 more rounds in it. Afterwards, Shiroi got the forklift key and rocketed back upstairs to the rooftop, using Alyssa's backdash to go up long stretches of stairs slightly faster. They broke down the grate with 6 nails from their nail gun and made their way down to the street. Shiroi followed the same strategy for the cars as Poopfist's record, pushing the nearby one as much as he could, then getting the front car in place before finishing the first. Shiroi went into the alleyway with a different loadout than Poopfist did, but ultimately ended up saving Raymond the same amount of shells in the end. They had a solid explosion room, and clean movement to the end of the level, netting themselves a new record of 9 minutes and 21 seconds. Then, in the summer and fall of 2015, 3 more record runs would take place. Unfortunately, however, no video proof exists today. But while we can't know exactly what route or character these runners used, what we can know is that each one of them was a world record at one point in time. The first of these runs was also the first ever sub-9 on Very Hard, an 8 minute and 59 second run by a guy known as Stuntman Snake, who was a strong runner and route optimizer of the time. There was also a 6 minute and 19 second run on normal by a runner named Ieri-Madheshi, who beat Jerry Kuto's nearly 7-year-old run by 40 seconds. And lastly, someone who would become a very solid runner, and one of Outbreak's first world record machine, Trance would bring out an incredible sub-6 minute time of 5 minutes and 59 seconds on easy. But Trance wasn't stopping there. He began grinding Outbreak on easy and very hard, and in the next year, he would strike again. Twice. And the best part? These other times, we have video of. On March 26, 2016, Trance booted up a very hard run, and then this happened. He followed the route that Shiroi had previously used before Stuntman Snake's record, and Trance had absolutely clean movement and menuing. Not only that, but he got better car RNG, not getting blocked while pushing either of the cars. He helped Raymond open the door, saving him 4 shells by the end. And then grabbed the lighter, roasted the scissor tails, and had very clean movement all the way to the end. For that performance, Trance earned himself an 8 minute and 40 second very hard world record, beating the previous record by 19 seconds. And then 2 months later, on May 22nd, 2016, Trance would improve his own already impressive sub-6 easy record. This run was nuts. If you thought the movement and menuing in the last record was clean, this was on a whole nother level. Trance had clearly practiced the scenario for weeks, if not months. He shot open the staff room door with 4 rounds of his .45 auto handgun, then very quickly grabbed the blue key from under the newspaper, swapping the item to have the key in a desirable spot in his inventory. Then, he went upstairs and grabbed the forklift key, catching the door out on the way of the wine room, saving about a half a second. After that, he used the forklift key and flipped on the lever before the zombies even broke down the front door of the bar. Then he went out to the roof, put 1 shot into the grate, and rocketed down to the streets. Trance got absolutely perfect car RNG here, going to the front car first, not getting blocked at all. Then he grabbed the shotgun from the trunk and went back to push the second car, also not getting blocked whatsoever. Trance then picked up the shotgun shells in the alleyway and shot the door from farther away, saving slight time on movement. He grabbed the lighter from Raymond's corpse, swapping the shotgun since Kevin runs slower with a 2-handed gun equipped. After that, he used the lighter quickly and had really clean movement to the end of the scenario, where he was awarded a time of 5 minutes and 54 seconds. beating his old record by 5 seconds in the process. After this run, the records would stand where they were for a good amount of time, almost 2 years. In late January 2018, a runner named Fromps tried a few attempts at Outbreak Easy, quickly lowering his PB from a 6:33 on January 22nd to a 6:15 the next day, and finally a 6:10 5 days later. Then, having honed his gameplay, he decided to set his sights on Outbreak Normal. On February 1st, 2018, Fromps got on a pretty solid run, adopting the 4 shots into the staff room door technique from easy into normal, and also having consistently solid menus and pretty good movement overall. He got the zombie cutscene just before he reached the forklift, and then pumped 2 shots into the grate on the rooftop. He messed up the lineup for the jump slightly and lost a small amount of time. After going through the apartment and down to the streets, Fromps opted to push the nearest car first and then jump over, grab the shotgun, and then push the far car, not getting blocked at all. In the alleyway, he grabbed the shotgun shells from the ground and shot the door with Raymond, using his partners as shields against the encroaching zombies. He has a minor slip-up grabbing the lighter, but then recovers and gets through the rest of the run with clean enough movement, netting himself a new world record on normal of 6 minutes and 18 seconds.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. I just got world record. Sweet.
And with the previous record standing nearly 2 years, how long would Fromps' record stand for? A month and a half. A newcomer named Ware began runs of RE Outbreak in early March, and by the 20th, he considered himself good enough to try and challenge the normal world record. He used the same route as Fromps, shooting the door 4 times and getting the blue key, then getting the forklift key ASAP. Ware messed up slightly exiting the wine room, costing him about a second compared to Fromps by the time he was at the forklift. Then he went up to the roof, shot the grate twice, then nailed the jump lineup that Fromps messed up, and proceeded down the apartment and into the streets. Ware didn't get blocked on the cars, but he pushed the farther car once more than he needed to before he pushed the nearest car to leave the room. He executed the alley about on par with Fromps. They both used 14 shells on the door, but then Ware had a better lighter pickup, and began to gain time. Then he played very cleanly to the end of the scenario, getting a 2-second world record of 6 minutes and 16 seconds. Later that year, another new runner named Unikoi ran and topped all 3 categories at the time. No video proof exists today of these runs, but they were a 5:53 on easy, 6 minutes flat on normal, and an 8 minute and 8 second run on very hard. It's unclear exactly what route they used, most likely just sticking to existing strategies with better execution over time. In the months after these runs, the leaderboards would undergo some changes, adding the hard category, and many existing runners deciding to retire. After a long break and some time to get used to the new boards, more world records would be achieved. The next runner for us to talk about is named WX Chris, a very skilled runner and one of the most stubborn record holders in Outbreak. Chris's first world record run would be done on February 26, 2020, on Very Hard. He elected to choose an NPC character, Rita, who's an Alyssa type, meaning she possesses the same abilities and personal item, namely the lockpick, as Alyssa. Rita also starts with 15 handgun rounds in her inventory as her own additional starting item. Chris started the run by going right into the men's restroom to get the handgun in there. He exited through the still open door and followed the same lockpick strategies as before, also grabbing the nail gun before heading into the liquor room. This was important. Chris had a new strategy for the liquor room that he would bring to both hard and very hard. He started by luring a zombie over to this staircase by the shutter. Then, at just the right time, he ran down, baiting the zombie to swing into the right position. Then with a single tackle, the zombie would touch the shutter and start breaking it down, leaving Chris free to shoot it open with his weaponry. This strategy, although very difficult to get the hang of, saved a bunch of time over getting the forklift key and crawling on top of the boxes. Afterwards, he proceeded through the rest of the level as usual, went to the grate and shot it down, then to the streets where he pushed the nearby car first, then did the farther one after. After that, he used the rest of his ammo and a pipe to save Raymond just over 6 shotgun shells worth of time on the door. He then had a very clean rest of the scenario, riding out the van ending with a final time of 7 minutes and 49 seconds. The first ever sub 8 on Very Hard. 5 days later, on March 2nd, 2020, WX Chris submitted the first hard difficulty speedrun to the boards, using a very similar strategy as his Very Hard run. Playing as Rita, it was all the same until he got to the street. Where he picked up a shotgun out of this trunk, which is a handgun instead on Very Hard, which is why he didn't grab it then, before helping Raymond with a whopping 13 shells on the alleyway door. He got a relatively clean lighter pickup, but messed up slightly on turning the valve. There were no more major mistakes after this room, and the run ended up really well with a time of 6:58, an excellent start for the world records on hard. Also around this time, the champion of Outbreak File 1 and 2 speedrunning picked up the game, and soon after, he would post his first world record time. This is the beginning of Lance LM's reign. Lance is a very skilled speedrunner who has run many games, including other Resident Evils, both before and after his time running Outbreak. He would grind for long hours just to get the perfect time, and many perfect times he did achieve. Lance got his first world record on Outbreak Easy on March 14, 2020. In this run, he tied Unikoi's 5:53 with absolutely clean movement and menuing. He got perfect car RNG, pushing the far car first as well. Shot from as far as you can in the alley to save time on movement, and also, he invented the fastest and most precise method of moving through the game, commonly called either hybrid movement or shark controls. This type of movement is achieved by holding down the forward button on the D-pad to continually make your character move in the direction they're facing, while also using the analog stick to turn their facing direction both quickly and accurately. This run was also a no damage clear, meaning that he wasted no time by getting hit. Many didn't think that the time could go lower, but 6 months later, after some breaks from the category and plenty more grinding, Lance would get this run. The date was September 3rd, 2020. Lance booted up his stream to try and beat his easy record. He got a very clean start, no mistakes to be seen anywhere. He got halfway to the ladder after activating the forklift before getting the zombie cutscene, absolutely zooming through the scenario. He once again got to the streets and had perfect car RNG, pretty much just playing the level as good as humanly possible. Textbook alleyway. Very clean explosion room. And rocketing through the tunnel. He gets to the footbridge, goes back to Dorian at the van, and a 550. Wow. 3 seconds were just shaved off a run that was already considered perfect. And just as everyone else was thinking that he might have burned himself out beating that easy record, he dropped this bombshell the very next day, proving that he had not only skill, but endurance as well. For this run, he basically just transferred his knowledge and execution from his easy run the day prior. No major mistakes all the way through. Normal has you shoot the door with Raymond a few more times, losing a small amount of time though. So in the end, Lance ended that day with the first sub 6 minute time on normal, a 5:58. After those godly runs by Lance, the record slowed for a time, until almost a year later, on August 24th, 2021, a returning runner that had retired before came back to the game with amazing potential. This is Morsi 743. Morsi is primarily known for playing Outbreak online with his Twitch viewers, doing challenge runs, and playing as David a lot of the time. But all of that casual play had made sure that his skills as a runner not only didn't decline, but also grew in time. Perhaps even more than he knew at the time. Morsi flexed his skills on File 2, getting records on Very Hard before coming back to good old File 1 and Outbreak. Morsi practiced a ton on stream to get the zombie manipulation for the shutter down, but once he did, he got this run. Following the same strategy as Chris, Morsi would have a very clean beginning, but lost a small amount of time in the liquor room. He made up for this later with a minor glitch where, if you have an AI partner enter the room at the top of the apartment while the elevator's opening, you'll be able to open the elevator doors about a second or two sooner than you otherwise could. He also got the same RNG as Chris did, and pushed them in the same order. He helped Raymond as much as possible, saving him 8 shells by completely using up his ammo and breaking an entire pipe on the door. Morsi continued to save more time towards the end of the scenario and earned a 7-minute and 48-second time, a world record by 1 second. However, Chris wasn't going to take this sitting down, especially seeing that Morsi had a new trick up his sleeve. Chris fired up a run the very same day, and not losing much time in the beginning, as well as having the elevator time save, Chris put down a very clean run and defended his title extremely swiftly, even tying the 8 shells saved by Morsi on his run in the alley. Chris's time for this run ended up a 7:46, 2 seconds faster than Morsi's newest record. But just because Chris bit back didn't mean that Morsi couldn't take the heat. 6 days later, on August 30th, 2021, Morsi got another extremely clean run after several streams worth of attempts. Morsi stayed on pace with his previous run of 7:48 until the rooftop, where he saved 1 second. And then he saved another 3 seconds on the apartment 3rd floor with a really clean elevator opening. He got slightly bad RNG, but with a new dodge move through the first barricade to negate the worst of the time loss, he was still a second ahead of his PB by this point. Morsi helped Raymond even more in this run, saving him 10 shells and ended up another second ahead. He kept this pace for a couple of rooms and then started gaining more time, being way ahead by the end, getting himself a 1 second world record of 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Chris clapped back once more a few days later on September 3rd, 2021, getting a pretty solid run. He still followed the same route and saved about a second on his 7:46 PB by the end of the liquor room. Chris held this pace down to the streets, got some good RNG and the backdash through the barricade that Morsi did, saving another 2 seconds in the area. He helped Raymond less than optimally, only saving him 7 shells, losing 2 seconds. He kept this pace until the last few rooms, where he got 3 gold splits, meaning that he was the fastest he had ever done those rooms. Ending up with a world record tie with Morsi at 7:45, where they left Very Hard for the time being. 11 days later, Morsi decided to also take on Chris's Outbreak hard record. He put his mind to it and played really cleanly. With the shotgun from the police car's trunk, he saved Raymond 14 shells on the door and kept a rapid pace to the end, getting a 1 second world record here as well of 6:57. There's one last runner we need to bring up, a guy who started running in the fall of 2020. Now, you might be thinking,
But Azumi, we just covered runs from fall of 2021. Why didn't you bring this guy up sooner?
And fair point, but I decided to leave talking about this runner last because of the difference in the runs. These runs are faster than any existing records, but have been relegated to a separate category for good reason. Allow me to tell you a short story, the story of Outbreak Out of Bounds, and a little trick called the Izumi Shuffle. I began running Resident Evil Outbreak in the fall of 2020, as I mentioned. But one day, November 27th, 2020, I was running the final scenario, Decisions on hard, and I tried to open my inventory to unequip a rifle without having to stop moving. It just so happens that I timed the opening of my inventory with the precise time of me crossing the threshold of a loading zone. I didn't know the gravity of what I had just done at the time, although I knew it was strange.
Wait, did y'all see that?
I did more testing on unequipping weapons and doors, thinking I was just too slow to unequip it on that run, and then I discovered the Izumi Shuffle. By opening your inventory while going into a loading zone, and trying to equip or unequip a weapon over and over, you can fool the game into not loading you into the next zone, and shooting you past the loading zone, out of bounds. From here, you can walk around to the loading zones on the other side of doors, bypassing any key requirements. At first, this only seemed to be useful in the fourth scenario, Hellfire, because I could only figure out how to go through already open archways. But a few months later, in March of 2021, Ware, the guy who held the normal world record for a number of months in 2018, helped me figure out how to do this trick on any door, breaking every other map instantly, including Outbreak. Shortly thereafter, I attempted to beat every easy record as a proof of concept. On Outbreak, I figured out this route and got this run. You begin the same on easy and shoot the first door. Then you go up and use the blue key since it was faster than setting up another shuffle. Then you shuffle right as you go into the liquor room to hit the shutter loading zone. And after that, it's the same as easy. Get good RNG, help Raymond shoot the door, and run like hell to the van ending. This run ended up being 5 minutes and 37 seconds, 13 seconds faster than Lance's record, even with some mistakes. At the point of this run's submission, the Out of Bounds category was created. Since then, I've beaten every other difficulty with Out of Bounds, achieving a 538 on normal on November 13th, 2021, using the same route as the easy run. My hard run started differently, going into the men's room to get the handgun, then shuffling past the staff room door. I went up the stairs and then set up for a new shuffle I found recently to skip the blue key door. I then went into the liquor room and did the same shuffle as easy and normal, making this 3 shuffles in one run. After that, I got the shotgun from the car and helped Raymond. Hauling ass to the end, I ultimately got a 624. And lastly, my very hard run. On November 15th, 2021, I went through the same steps at the very beginning as hard. Got the handgun, then shuffled to the staff room. Afterwards, though, I went through and grabbed the nail gun and the lighter from the drawing room. I set up my second shuffle to the liquor room and hit it second try. I did the liquor room shuffle and then went to the streets, pushing both cars, but getting blocked a little bit. Then I had a terrible back alley, getting put on bleed twice and only saving Raymond 3 shells. I had a few seconds of bleed entering the next room, but also had the lighter from the drawing room, overall losing a few seconds, but not as many as I could have. I had decent movement until the end, achieving a 4-second world record of 7 minutes and 41 seconds. This run, and the others too, are still far from perfect. Chris has since taken a hiatus from speedrunning, and Lance has also just retired recently, leaving the future of Outbreak in the hands of newer runners. Will you be the next person to beat a Lance time? Will you be the next to challenge the vast potential of Out of Bounds? Or will you be the next person to find something that breaks the games even more than that? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching.